Welcome to the Common Ground podcast, where stories connect, perspectives collide, and purpose is found in the middle.
Every week, we sit down with unique and inspiring guests that come from all walks of life. People who challenge the status quo, overcome the odds, and live with intentionality.
Whether you're driving to work, on your morning walk, or just looking for that spark to ignite your week, you're in the right place.
Welcome to the Common Ground podcast with your hosts, John Fletcher and Sydney Nicole.
Welcome to the Common Ground podcast. That's right, it is your boy. Philly is here. He is somewhat sane, and he is ready to have an amazing episode. And
I don't know if you were ever somewhat sane.
Yeah, that is for debate, isn't it?
It's subject to opinion and the day of the week.
True. As always, I always have with me, she looks good at the beach, she looks good at home, she looks good on the road, and she looks good in the mountains. As always, Miss Sydney Nicole is in the place, in the house, ready to partner with me and put on an awesome episode.
Happy hump day, everybody. Thanks for the gracious introduction, Philly.
As always. So this weekend I was just hanging out with a friend, and we saw these two bikes go by, and there was these two bikes, and I said, what's the difference between that poorly dressed man on the tricycle and that well dressed man on a bicycle? And he's like, I don't know. I said, a tire.
Yes. Okay. All right. Clever. This might work on me today. I got 2 hours of sleep. So what you got?
What did the shy taco need to find its confidence?
What?
It just needed to come out of its shell.
All right. Very good. Very good. Let us know what your favorite dad comment or dad joke is in the comments. I'm going to vote the taco one. I feel like this will be good for coming out of my shell today. It's appropriate. It's fitting.
When I can speak poquito Spanish, but normally when I'm around Spanish people and they start talking, I just go taco taco.
There's
but before we get canceled, you mean?
Yeah, pretty much.
As always, today our guest is Ally Dalsimer, an award-winning author, motivational speaker, podcast host, and passionate advocate for personal growth, resilience, and self-discovery. Ally holds degrees in English and psychology from the University of Richmond, along with a master's degree in public policy from Georgetown University. Throughout her career and personal journey, she has navigated profound loss, significant life transitions, and professional reinvention. Experiences that ultimately led her to become the voice of encouragement and hope for others. She is the author of the award-winning book, It's Okay Not to Be Fabulous Every Day, A Journey to Self-Discovery, a heartfelt exploration of growth, change, healing, and self-worth. Through her writing, speaking, and podcasting, Ally empowers people to embrace their authentic selves, recognize their inherent value, and understand that life's challenges do not diminish their worth. As a leader, Ally believes in the power of communication, appreciation, collaboration, and recognition. Whether she's speaking to an audience, interviewing guests on her podcast, or connecting one-on-one, her mission remains the same: to help people feel seen, valued, and inspired to become the fullest versions of themselves. While she's not writing, speaking, or recording podcasts, Ally enjoys reading, traveling, spending time with her children, and doting on her beloved chubby rescue cat, Puma. Please welcome to the Common Ground podcast, Ally Dalsimer.
Well, that is a whole lot more than I sent you.
That was
a lot. Yeah, thank you for that great intro. I feel like I have a lot to live up to now.
Well, you've got an impressive resume, so thank you for being with us today, Allie. And for our viewers that are tuning in, where are you calling in from?
I am calling in from outside of Washington, D.C. in Northern Virginia.
Very nice. And for your full-time work now, are you a full-time author, speaker, and podcaster, or do
I
you do
am.
other things?
I am. I'm a full-time, I'm a full-time author, speaker, and pop. Right now, I'm not doing so much of the speaking because I'm really focusing on a current manuscript, and also we're working on our current season for our podcast, which I co-host with my son.
Oh, that's wonderful. Okay. And what's the name of your podcast? Because I know that's not necessarily the direct focus of today, but let's give it a shout.
Absolutely, because it's awesome. It's called So, What's Your Process? And we talk with creatives from all different fields about what they do and how they do it. And it's been really great. So we're in the middle of our towards the end of our third season and recording our fourth season now. So
That's fantastic. Now,
yeah.
did the book come first or did the podcast come first?
No, actually, I would I would never in a million years seen myself doing a podcast a few years ago. The book definitely came first, and as we were talking about before, before we went live, I didn't even anticipate writing a book. I didn't even anticipate putting that out. Like I never put myself thought of putting myself out there in such a public way. So it's been an evolution, and the process and the journey that I've taken, because I've taken my own journey to self discovery, has led me to just a complete. I spent 30 years as doing environmental work, environmental management and policy, and so this is completely different.
Yeah, no, that is a very different arena for sure. So, and let's take a step back because originally I was going to ask you like if somebody had met you 5 years prior to the book, but it sounds like just based on the subtitle of your book that this has been a much longer journey than even just 5 years prior to the book. Is that correct?
No, I mean, we all have our life journeys, right? We're all journeying from the time we're born. But in terms of where I am now, I would actually say no, that you're right. It's really 5 years ago, I was not where I am now, but it's because of the book and because of everything that went with it that I am now who I am and where I am in my journey.
So then I'll ask it as that. If somebody had met you 5 years ago
Mhm.
versus the you that's with us today, gracing us with your presence on our show, what is the biggest difference? What was that pivotal point for you?
Well, I guess there were a number of pivotal points. The first was deciding to actually publish the book, to put it out there publicly, because that's a big step. As you know, you've written a book, and to put personal stories, personal information out into the public is it can be a scary thing to reveal parts of you, depending on how open. I don't know how open you were, Sydney, but I was always a very quiet and reserved person. And so for me to put something out there very, very publicly was a big step. And then the other big step I think was agreeing to co-host a podcast with a guy named Cyrus Webb, who had read my book and he really liked it. And he invited me on and interviewed me. And then he asked if I'd be willing to co-host a podcast where we took a deep dive and went chapter by chapter through it. And so we did. We had uh, a pretty a pretty long podcast series, about 30 episodes, going through the book and having deep dive discussions on each chapter. Which is, I was like, how are we going to do this? Because each one's like 2 pages long. How are we going to talk for 30 minutes on this? But we did, and being able to do that was important. And also, so I ran for Congress as well, and the process was really challenging. That's a viper pit. Politics. It's worse than you think it is.
I'm in
Um,
politics. I know. Yeah.
yeah, it's really
It's
awful.
awful.
So, but when I finally sort of went through everything I went through, because my mom became ill and passed while I was running, and of course it was the pandemic and our house flooded, and it was just all kinds of things going on at that time. And when I got through it and got to the other end, and could finally see straight, I realized, wow, if I could do that, I literally can do anything. And,
Mm.
that might also have impacted my not turning my kids down on publishing the book in the first place. So,
Yeah, sure.
but I mean, all these things, there's so many, everybody's got so many pivotal moments, it's,
And I like that evaluation of that it wasn't necessarily one moment that changed things. It tends to be a culmination of things that happen or a series of events that leads to something greater.
I think true success stories either happen one of two ways. I think you either work extremely hard because you find like your passion early on and you're driven by it, or like what Sydney just said, it's a culmination of things that lead you and you can't escape from it. You can't run from it. You can't, it just, it just all lines up for you to, to do. And that's what I love about your story. Cause I think we've had the people who have started off and early on in life became fascinated with like the behind the scenes directing or the engineering. But we also have the people who lives have taken these interesting, you know, I wouldn't say they probably called it interesting as they were going through it. It's probably really hard. When you're going through it, it's really hard. When you're past it, you go back and be like, "Well, that was interesting because I've learned so much from it," and I'm thankful for it. But it leads you to this culmination of where you're at. And first of all, I just want to say I think that's awesome. I love the story how you almost couldn't get away from doing like you never dreamed of doing podcasting, writing a book. I'm not the like I kind of told you I think in one of our earlier meetings that I knew who I was, I lost who I was, and I had to refine who I was, you know? So my story kind of has a little slight different. Like I knew in the beginning, I had a little bit of both. I knew in the beginning exactly what I wanted to do, lost my way, and ended up coming back to it in a different version of it, but um, with the same core values. So I really appreciate that.
well,
So
I
our
think it's great that you were
topic,
able to come back to it because I think a lot of people who are in that position never do find their way back. So, good for you for doing that.
um, well, it took a lot of change in my life, and um, it took a lot of healing. It took a lot of heartache for me to realize. I mean, I
That's
knew I
why
was
she did.
lost.
That's just what, like, to her point, a lot of people that don't come back, it's because it takes that work to come back to finding yourself. And that's just emotional work. It's healing work. It's inner work that some people don't have the fortitude to do or know how to do.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate that. I don't always feel that way.
Ditto.
So I appreciate those words.
Well, you know what, though, Philly? It's okay not to be fabulous every day.
Yes. Some days it's like just put me on a roller coaster, like flip me over, okay? That was my little Valley Girl impression. If I'm not fabulous, I guess I'm a Valley Girl.
Don't do it again. This this is your one grace. You're on strike two. You're on
Thank
strike
you.
two, and we're 15 minutes in.
But our topic today is confidence. And I think to just go back to what we were saying, I think I was able to come back because I originally had that confidence to begin with. And I don't know, maybe if I didn't have that confidence to begin with, maybe that's why some people don't make it back. Um, but when did you realize when did you start, understanding that maybe you didn't have confidence, that you were lost, that you were struggling?
Well, again, it's a process, right? All these things are processes. So much in life, it's a culmination, like Sydney said, and um, I think the earliest memory I have of my confidence being shaken was when I was in the third grade. I think I was 8 years old, and I used to do gymnastics. I was pretty good at gymnastics, and I was invited to join this club where they train junior Olympians, and I was like, oh my god, I was just so excited about it, and I remember I told my mom, and she was super excited for me and all the rest of it, and said she would figure out how to get me to practice because at the time. Um, she made 60 cents on the dollar of her male counterparts, and we lived below the poverty line. And so she had to, go, she was all the way across town for her job. But she was like, I'll figure out how to get you there. It'll be fine. We'll take care of it. And so my parents split when I was 5. And so she said, you got to ask your dad for the money, for the fee for it. And I did. And I remember he said to me, he said, well, they just want your money. And I remember thinking about that. I was like, "No, no, I mean, they want me to do gymnastics. They want me to train for gymnastics." And anyway, fast forward a little bit, and I started questioning. I was like, "Well, maybe I'm not that good. Maybe they just, want money, and it's got nothing to do with me, and I don't have any talent or ability." And um, that was the first time I ever remember having my confidence shaken. Not the last, but it was the first.
It's interesting that you were that insightful at that age. I mean, that's a incredibly. I could see how that comment could be hurtful and shake confidence justifiably so. But you were how old did you say?
8. And I think if I was insightful, I would have realized that money had nothing to do with it. I don't think I was insightful. I think I was
Well,
just
I
a
just think
kid who
about
was.
I know that ink is like that's it's a big cognitive gap but I think about my almost 7-year-old daughter and my 5-year-old daughter, and I don't know that they would put those pieces together to associate that my comment could have like if I had said that as a parent, I'm not sure that they would have had the thought process to walk through, well, maybe it is about money and as opposed to a reflection of my talent instead of the cognitive piece that you say, if I was insightful, I would have been able to say it could be both or it could be neither, right? Like it can be about money for sports and it can be about because you are talented. They are not mutually exclusive. But still, that's something very insightful for somebody at age 8 to recognize. And I heard that we have a degree in psychology too. Is that right?
I do, yeah.
We have a lot of similarities here at this table. I like it. What interested you in psychology? Not to digress, it's all related for me. But
I think anybody who knows anybody about those who major in psychology know that nearly everybody goes into it because they have a problem. They have a problem with themselves they're trying to figure out. So that's why I went into it. What's wrong with me? Um, and of course, as you go through, you start to realize that it isn't necessarily you, or
yeah,
maybe things are you. I mean, it depends on the person, of course, but you do learn a lot after you decide that everything is wrong with you. After you decide that you have all of these issues. And I did actually discover it. I had a couple little things, but it was. I don't know if you did the same, but I think a lot of people who go into psychology do it because they're trying to figure out something in their own lives.
yeah. Whether it's about them or somebody in their life that that they're close with, or I think for me it was a culmination of it was both.
Mhm.
But I couldn't agree more. I guess my question is how much of what you were trying to figure it out, and you can go into as much or as little detail as you want, was tied back to confidence, regardless of some of the underlying symptoms that can be associated with that, right? Like anxiety can rock your confidence, depression can rock your confidence. How much of this has just like kind of been the overall arching theme for the work that you've done in advocacy when you ran for office, the book that you wrote, the podcast that you do? It seems to kind of all equal to this bigger picture.
Yeah, I'll be honest. It's the old fake it till you make it kind of thing. I had a definite air of confidence that I put on. I think if you asked any of my coworkers or friends, they all thought I was extremely confident. But it was a facade. I didn't feel it. And I was always second guessing myself and, filled with regrets for things that I did or didn't do or said or didn't say or could have done it better, the old coulda, shoulda, woulda. Um, so I don't think that I was living an authentic life for a very, very long time.
It's
I do,
interesting. Go ahead, John.
I was gonna say I do like your question because I was gonna take the opposite way and be like, did the do the kids that you say I think you said like that every child starts out with confidence. And I guess some people could say, well, that just means that they have no filter or they're just ignorant of other stuff. What role does like those things take a part of being our confidence, you know? Are we more confident when we are ignorant, when we have no filter, when we're do those things play a role in confidence, because like you, my daughter, my one daughter around the same age, you know, me and my ex-wife had gotten into a fight and she just goes to me, "Daddy, why don't you apologize to mommy?" And I was like, "'Cause I did nothing wrong." She's like, "But mommy's never gonna apologize to you." And I was like, dude, a 7-year-old can see that this already in her mom, like their perspective. They're very perceptive. They're very um they see everything that goes on. Is it the non-filter? Is it the ignorance of being
I don't even
polite?
think it's a filter. I'd love for Allie to speak on this, but we were not born with a spirit of fear. And there's a study done where they took kids and put them around snakes and spiders, ones that were not venomous or anything like that, but little ones. And it's all supervised, of course. But they could play with these gardener snakes and things like that. And the children had no fear. It was the mothers that invoked, primarily, I should say, that invoked fear into the children. It was the maternal reaction that the child witnessed that taught the child that they were supposed to be afraid of what they were in the presence of. It's the exact same thing when a child is playing. They did another study and they had the mother hold their child, put blocks on the table, and the kids are playing with the blocks. And then they have somebody come in and take a harsh tone while the child is playing, and you watch the curiosity get crushed. You watch them withdraw and stop engaging with the physical blocks in front of them. And what it taught us in the psychology world is that we are heavily influenced by those factors that we are socially and culturally taught: the emotional, the physical cues, body language cues, and tonality that gets hardwired into our brain is how we perceive the outside. So when you grow up in a home that has conflict, Allie mentioned her parents split when she was 5 years old. You tend to be more aware of your surroundings because you are constantly preemptively trying to protect yourself from being in the middle of a crossfire. Like, you don't want to be in the way of emotional volatility. Those types of children end up being and having a much higher intellectual or emotional quotient than children who arguably grow up in a stable home environment. And that's not a good thing or a bad thing. It's just circumstantial based on the level of emotional awareness and intuition that you have to have based on growing up in an unstable home environment.
Yeah, you just said it all. So kudos. I mean, that's exactly right. So fear is an absolutely learned behavior, and the years 0 to 5 are crucial for developing our sense of self. And while there is, the whole nature versus nurture, there are kids who are, more timid, more introverted than others. Basically, confidence, fear, those things are learned. Those are learned behaviors, learned perceptions. And, there's things that parents, I actually wrote an article for Authority Magazine on how to raise more confident children. And,
Awesome.
yeah, but it's all about things, but it's all about like those 0 to 5, those formative years. And, it's about stability and routine and unconditional love and exploration and curiosity. And, it's crucial for all the reasons that you've just said.
So here's a question, as we're talking about kids. How does confidence, or what role does confidence play, or does it play a role in entitlement? What's the difference between the two? Like,
You mean like feeling
what's
like
the
you should have whatever you but it's
yeah,
uh,
like
uh,
that entitlement versus
true
confidence.
confidence. Yeah, I mean, I'm not sure that one is necessary for the other. People can feel entitled and not have any confidence, and people can feel confident and not feel entitled. I think those are two
Agreed.
separate things.
what was the correlation in your mind when you originally asked that question? I'm assuming you had like some sort of example because you usually do, or there was a
Yeah,
thought that crossed your brain.
just me. I was just thinking about, we were talking about the role of kids and becoming confident, and I know that like this younger generation seems to be very entitled, and I wanted to know the difference between the entitled, an entitled generation would look like, versus a generation of a confident generation would look like.
I would
I think
argue
in
that, yeah, I like
sorry,
Allie's answer on that. I don't
Yeah.
think that they're necessarily as- to like. I wouldn't classify them together. If anything, I think I could make a stronger case on why attachment disorders or attachment styles have a stronger correlation with entitlement or behavior issues in youth. What
yeah,
do you
I'd
think,
agree.
Allie?
Yeah, no, 100%. I honestly, I think a lot of entitlement comes from parent insecurity, which creates those attachment disorders, but it also creates a sense of like giving your child everything and never making them work for it or value it, or from uh, rewarding their achievements instead of their efforts, and that kind of thing. So,
But
Yeah.
at the same point, this younger generation, I think, has been more self-starter. They've definitely been a more self-starter generation. They've are more willing to do things on their own. And to me, that takes a lot of confidence to do that. You're going for something that's, not giving you necessary stability over that. You think that you can make the money on your own. I can create something on my own.
I don't know if I'd necessarily agree with that, only because I mean, if you look at you know people in the in the 1800s and going across west, and those were mostly young
Mm,
people, young homesteaders. That's, I mean, that talk about scary as heck. you know or
Absolutely.
starting new businesses. You have the whole industrial revolution, you have all kinds of things happening pre and post World War II. I don't know. I think you just have, people are people. I don't think one size fits all, and I think you have people who are self starters and motivated, and then you have people who are not. What we
I
have
really
now
love.
is more communication and media, so we see it more.
Yeah, no, I completely agree with that assessment, Allie. I think that I don't think that it's that they're more motivated or more self-starter. I think that they have access to instant gratification more so than the hardworking individuals that you mentioned in the Industrial Revolution. And just all of the things in history are an exhibit, because if we, honest to God, if we put this generation in those circumstances and expected to have the same outcome, I mean, our population would just go extinct. We would
Yeah,
not be in a good situation.
no.
But it does bring up a different question. I mean, you mentioned that a lot of your facade of confidence, until it became a true confidence, was built on identity that was assigned to you instead of identity that was actually yours. That's something that I think a lot of people do, because we all have these different hats or these different buckets in our lives that make up who we are. So it's not necessarily, from my perspective, anyways, I wouldn't call it a facade. I would say that it becomes a facade when we don't actually feel confident inside. But multiple components of our life can make up our identity, and we can be confident in multiple different of these buckets that we have in our lives, right? So, at what point did you realize that it was not true confidence and that it had been assigned to you? And what was the point? Where were you able to change that, to go in and say, okay, I want to fix this or work on this?
I didn't ever not know that I wasn't confident. I always knew it. It was
Really?
my guilty secret. I put on a
Mm.
performance every single day. I would like straighten my shoulders and speak with force, look people straight in the eye. Hi, I'm a confident person. It was an act. It was a complete act. So I think there was a moment, there was a series of moments where in the in the recent times where I have actively, so I'm sure you know this, but fear and excitement are the same biochemically in your brain. It's the same
Yes.
biophysical reaction, and it's how we choose to interpret that process going on within ourselves that decides how we will perceive it. And I actively forced myself to choose excitement over fear and step into doing several very uncomfortable things. I chose to publish this book. That was huge for me because I've always been a very private person. I have not shared things. I mean, I remember I was I was at work one time and I said something about getting together with my husband later. And this woman looked at me. I'd been working with this woman for several years. And she's like, "You're married?" I was like, "I am. And I have children." But I didn't share anything, with people outside of my close circle. And I did the same thing with, running for office. That was hugely scary. And that was something that was still scary, but I tried to view as excitement. And then, as I move forward, then doing the podcast, doing my first podcast about the book, that was like, okay, I'm going to do this. I'm going to be excited. And then when I actually got to doing my own podcast with my son, I genuinely was excited. I'm like, I am excited. I'm not having to choose excitement. I am excited. So, it took some time. And it started with actively choosing. And I think that that's probably true for almost anybody who is not living an authentic life. The first step is you have to actively choose to lean into discomfort. And once you do that enough, then it becomes comfortable.
And just
No,
to
I like
back you up, and I'll let you ask a question. But to just back you up real quick, for people who might say, fear and excitement aren't the same thing. Public speaking, roller coasters, the same thing for both people, but it drives different reactions to them. Either you're fearful of going on roller coasters or you're excited by them. It's the same feeling you get. It just one drives one versus one drives the other. Public speaking. I love public speaking. I get up. I'm as nervous as anybody else who gets up there. I'm worried about everything else but I also get so thrilled by it at the same time. So it's not like I don't have that anxiety before I go up in public speak. I do have that anxiety. It just for me, it's a thrill. It's not a. But don't ever get me on a roller coaster. That terrifies the living crap out of me. Unless you
funny.
flip me over. Oh,
Yeah, I mean, I get what you're saying. What do you feel that self-doubt stole from you before you did that inner work, that conscious change?
The same thing it steals from everyone, which is everything. You
mm.
don't pursue the dream job. You don't ask the guy out. You don't go bungee jumping. You don't do whatever it is that you would like to do secretly. You don't do it. So whether it's fear of failure or fear of success, um, because people have both, if you have fear, you're going to miss out on so much in every aspect of your life.
Yeah, if Fear filed a tax return, how much would it owe you?
Yeah. Right. Yeah.
So you talked about your journey, and let's go to your podcast. Like, because you said you did the first podcast with the co-host, and you were fearful, and then
Right.
you
Yeah.
said when you did the second podcast, you were genuinely excited.
Yeah. Yeah. So,
Besides you trying to say something to your mind, like what changed? What other things changed to help that?
yeah. So that's kind of the core of it, right? So Cyrus asked me if I'd be interested in doing a podcast, a deep dive into each chapter of my book. And my first reaction was like, then I was like, you know what? No, I need to do this. I need to do this. And I was like, yes, because I trusted him and knew that he wasn't going to, make me look like a fool or whatever I was feeling at that moment. And I was like, yes. And I remember the first one, I was like, I'm like sweating, and I'm like sitting just very, all calm looking, but I'm like, there's sweat trickling down my back and my heart is racing like this. And And we got through it, and it went well. And we were to the first chapter of the book. Is the quote at the front is from Queen Elizabeth II, and it says, "Grief is the price we pay for love." And so we
Mm.
talked about some of the grief, which is where my journey started, was with the death of my husband and some losses we had, and my mother passing. And I was really in a very dark place when I started writing this book, like literally could not think of a reason to get out of bed. Like, I really couldn't think of a reason, like, why, right? I'd lost my job, I wasn't in the election, my kids had left home. It's just like that I had no purpose in life. And I ended up getting up and reframing it. And so that's how I start the book, and that's how I started my journey. And so each week we met and we discussed each chapter. And I evolved. I really, instead of just like, because I wrote it as life advice for my kids, like, here, kids, you do this, right? This is good advice. You do it. Um, I started taking my own advice, which I think so many of us don't do, right? We're really good
Mhm.
at giving advice. We're not so good at taking our own advice. Um,
Yeah.
and I started really, really embracing it. And I literally healed through that journey. I took the journey to self discovery. And by the time I got to the end, I was a changed person. And I remember Cyrus said to me, he's like, you're good with this podcast stuff. You should do a podcast. And I was like, I'm so busy. I've got so much going on. Podcasts take a lot of work, as you both well know. Um, and I was like, I don't know. And I kept thinking about it, and I couldn't think of any reason that people would want to listen to me. I sat down and I recorded something and sent it to my kids. And I'm like, is this interesting at all? And they're like, no. And I was driving with a friend, and she was like, how do you go about being an author? Like, how do you do that? Where do you come up with your ideas, and just like sit down and write? Or, I mean, how does that work? And I was like, yeah, that's an interesting question. And I'm always asking my son that question because he's an actor and a singer and now a filmmaker. And I'm like, always asking him questions about, well, how do you go about doing that? What is the difference between stage acting and film acting, and, all these things. And it hit me. I was like, oh my gosh, I'm interested in this. My friend's interested in this. Everybody's interested in this. And so that's how I came up with the idea. And I originally was thinking I was just going to do authors. And I pitched the idea to my daughter, and she was like, it's a great idea. Everybody's going to love it. And I was like, yay. And I pitched it to my son, and he was like, hear me out. And I was like, yeah. And he says, all creatives. And I was like, and that's how we came up with it. And it's just been great and so much fun. So I was excited because, one, I had the confidence to do it. Two, I had an idea. And three, I had a partner.
Yeah, that's a really cool opportunity to do with him and to expand past the realm of just the one creative measure. Because yeah, authorship, writing a book takes a lot, and as you know, as you stated, but there's so many. I mean, starting a business takes a lot. Doing what your son does takes a lot, and it's just a different process. So that really brings the title full circle. I love that. That's great. Do you feel like reinvention has an age limit?
No. I mean, I'm starting a new career at the ripe old age of over 29.
My grandma used to say 29 and some months. That was her.
29 in some months. My
Yeah,
cousin is
that
aging backwards. He'll be 40 in about 10 years.
that's awesome.
I started this company at the age of 50. So,
Yeah, no, it's
but
never too old. I mean, we see stories about, people going back to school in their 80s and getting a degree because they weren't able to get it when they were young, or traveling the world. And I think it's never too late. I do think that a lot of people believe it's too late. They fool themselves into thinking they can't possibly pursue their dream now because, they're 50, they're 60, they're 90, whatever their age is. And they're like, oh, I can't do it now. It's too late. But that's just self deception. That's not reality.
so can you boil? Because I think of the person who, in the middle of a room, gets up and just starts dancing. and everybody looks at them like they're crazy, the one who wears this eccentric outfit, you know, um, and everybody goes, man, that's a person who has confidence. So, would you say that confidence does it boil down to not caring what other people think? Like, because you had made the
Yeah, I
comment,
mean,
like, you, I wanted to take it back when you started that first podcast, you said, nobody's going to want to listen to me, or who would want to watch me on a podcast? I forget exactly what the words you were. And that's when it dawned on me. It's like, and for me, yeah, I feel like I'm a confident guy. I don't care what people think. I really don't care. You like me, you like me. You don't, you don't. It doesn't affect me anymore.
yeah. Yeah, I mean, I think that's a huge part of it within limits. I mean, obviously you care what people think in terms of wanting them to think that. So I like people to think that I am a genuine person. And while I don't really care if someone doesn't like believe that because it doesn't impact my reality, um I have an interest in it. So care in that sense, because I want people to believe that, well, especially because, I do talk with groups and I do talk with people, and I want them to believe that what I'm saying is authentic and genuine and real, and not think I'm trying to feed them a line of some kind. But beyond that, no, I don't. I mean, confidence. If you're confident in who you are, it really doesn't matter what other people what other people think. It can matter what they say or do if it impacts your reputation in a negative way.
Yeah, absolutely. You looked like you were gonna say something else, John.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, like, to me, I just think that if nobody watched your podcast with your son, you would still be so confident in doing it because you get to do it with him, you know? And it's fun to you. Like, and
I
that's
would still enjoy doing it, but I'd be like calling my friends, being like, "Ugh, why aren't you watching my podcast?"
I'm curious. So you've told us what your book is about, and that it was originally written as life lessons for your kids that you ended up implementing, yourself, and taking on and adapting yourself. What are some of those? Like, what does that look like in your book?
What do you mean?
I mean, like, life lessons is, I think of the book. What's that book, John, where it's like the 911 Bible or something like that? And you can literally you can flip to a feeling that you're having, and it pulls up a bunch of scriptures related to that. I don't know what it's called, nor is it relevant. But I guess what I'm asking is, how did you structure it, and what are some
Oh,
of those lessons?
gotcha, gotcha, gotcha. Well, I structured it literally as a journey, as stepping stones along a path, so that there's an arc. There is a before and there is an after. But also because life is not linear, right? Life is definitely up and down, back and forth. Life is messy and dirty and crazy. And you're going to feel one thing one day and something else completely different the next. And so you can flip to any given section. And it's the goal is to motivate and inspire. So, one of the chapter titles is like just do it, right? The Nike slogan. And then the very first line is something along the lines of just do it. It's so easy, so simple, except for that doing it part,
Yeah,
right? Cuz that kind of thing. Or fear and regret are twin thieves that would rob us of today, because we regret the things we don't do so much more than the things we do. And then I would, in that chapter, I think I talked about my husband's aunt and her husband who wanted to go to New Orleans. They were real foodies and they wanted to go there and spend a week in New Orleans. And I say in there, to me, that wasn't a big deal. It's, a long car drive or a flight, and they just never took it. And Ralph ended up dying before they ever went. He died in his 50s, and they never took that trip. And before she passed, she told me that was one of her biggest regrets. And so, those kinds of things. Um, and it really does end with hopefully a message that you really can do anything you want. I I genuinely believe that we have within us whatever we need to achieve our true potential. I really believe that.
Mhm.
And it's a matter of opening yourself to it, leaning into it, and doing it. It's hard work. It's not easy. No one's going to do it for you. And so while the book is definitely a little bit rah, rah, go, go, it's also, you know, a kick in the pants. If you want to do it because no one else is going to do it for you. So there's a
Mhm.
combination of that in there.
Good.
So now that you have the confidence to be fabulous every day, even though you might not be fabulous every day, um, what what how do you see when your confidence is slipping, or do you see when you're starting to fall back into that previous part of your life? And how do you
Yeah.
adjust? How do you stop
Yeah.
yourself? How do you
100% because I'm still on my journey, right? Hopefully everyone is still on their journey. Like the journey never ends. You keep stepping into your new potential every day that you move forward. At least that's what I'm trying to do. And like I said a minute ago, life is up and down. It's messy. And of course there are times where my confidence is shaken. There's someone who is close in my life and sometimes after conversations, I feel like, what am I doing? Why am I bothering? I'm not doing anything. I'm just wasting my life. And I definitely have that. I call those people the naysayers. And I say in my book, you need to, and in my talks as well, you need to try and minimize your time and if possible, eliminate your exposure to people who are naysayers, people who try to bring you down. The friend who gives a backhanded compliment, something like, wow, you did really great given that you only had 2 nights sleep, 2 hours sleep. No, you did great. That's you did great. Not given you only had 2 hours sleep, which immediately
Yeah.
says, well, you really did kind of crappy, but whatever. Um, those kinds of people are
That
they're not
backhanded
helpful.
compliment. Yeah.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
completely candid. Those people are not the kind of people you need in your life, even if you think they're your friends, even if they've been your bestie since you were 2 or whatever. Um, and and then just the people who are outright who don't support you, who don't just unconditionally love you and want the best for you irrespective. The people who only um, prop you up if they get something out of it, or the people who try to bring you down because they erroneously think that that's going to make them feel better. Those kinds of people, really trying to eliminate those people helps you stay in that confident, happy place. Because when you are confident, when you feel good in your own skin, when you're living a genuinely authentic life, you're a happier person, you know? I think the biggest difference between who I was and who I am now is that I smile a lot more. They
Mhm.
say
I
there
love
was a study done, and Sydney, you may remember it. It's been a while, but it was like kids smile like I don't remember what it was, like 30 times an hour or something like that, and then it was like adults smile like 3 times a day. I don't remember. I'm making those numbers up because it's been too long since I read that study. But I smile a lot more now, and I think confident people are happier people, and happier people smile more.
Mhm. Mhm.
Hmm. So, if you can go back to some part of your life, maybe that 8-year-old girl who was challenged about gymnastics, um, but you can choose whatever time period you wanna go back to, and you could say something to yourself. When would you go back and what would you say?
1,000 regrets, 10,000. There are a bazillion moments I would like to go back to and tell myself different things. I saw a really interesting article one time, and it was somebody, a reporter, asking people who were octogenarians um, and septuagenarians, like, if you could tell your younger self something, what would you tell them? And it was all about, eat more ice cream, and which I think I use in the book, and
Mhm.
dance more. Don't worry about what you're eating. Diet less. Have more fun. Don't worry about what other people think. Blah 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 blah. And then this one woman was like, I would tell myself to buy real estate. And I was like, that's practical. So I think In terms of me, I would probably choose a practical thing, and I would have been more insistent about getting my husband to the doctor when he first started having pains so that he didn't die of cancer at such a young age. Sorry, I
Um,
didn't mean to make it go all heavy, but life-changing, practical, good advice. I really just didn't wanna nag. He was annoyed I was nagging him, and, I would have nagged more.
Well, you didn't make it heavy. I mean, that's your story and it's true. And I think that there's a lot of people that can relate to something like that, whether it was because they were passed off as nagging or pestering their family. I have a friend that is close to me and her sister passed away of I can't remember the details of it. I want to say it was diabetes related, and a lot of it would have been manageable with things like health changes and stuff. But every time that she tried to encourage her by getting out with her sister would push back and say that she didn't want to. She ended up passing away at a very, very young age. And so I think that it's good for people to hear, not because you went through it and not because of the real hurt that you had to live through of losing a spouse that no one should ever have to go through, but because maybe it will resonate with somebody that feels that they're pestering and maybe they will take that practical piece of advice.
Well, hopefully so.
and that's gonna bring us to our final two segments. And the first segment is called key takeaways.
Key takeaways.
Well, first of all, I really think that I encourage you that you're the only person whose opinion matters to you. And I think that we do allow people to take our confidence away. I think we allow people to take our joy away. I think we allow people to take our happiness away. And that is in my true, and we didn't even get into this, but in my true, just thinking about confidence and everything, I think it's a gift. And I think we end up giving it away, our confidence.
Mm.
Um, and I think it's a choice, a subconscious choice that we make, um, not knowing it, not even realizing it that we're doing it, you know? But that like when that person told you that that gymnastics they were only in it for your money, you you they ended up taking that some of that confidence. You let them have it. You gave it away. Not like again, not knowing it, not like this is a choice, but that's what happens. It's just uh we allowed it to go. Um and So I encourage you to keep on doing the hard work, the interpersonal work on yourself because you're worth it. And that's what it comes down to. You're worth your happiness. You're worth your your who you are, you know?
Yeah.
And I'm going to come back to my faith because when God created man and female, he said it is good. It is good. It is he made us in his image. We are we are the apple of his eye, you know? We he loves us. Um and we are special. And we allow people to take that and along with our and then we allow people to take that confidence on who we are because that is our right. Our right is that we are awesome. Our right is that we are special. Our right is that we are worth it. And we give it away cheaply and allow people to have it for free. Um, don't do that. And for anybody who's listening, you are worth it. You can take it back. You are worth it. You are special. You are loved. You are precious. And don't ever settle for less.
I just finished writing almost those exact words in the dedication to my daughter for the children's book that I am publishing for her this week, actually. So, uh, yeah. But my key takeaway is it's in a similar vein, but I think that it's what we talked about earlier on from that psychology perspective. But, children are born confident until the world gives them a reason not to be. And there's no toddler that stands in front of a mirror wondering if they're smart enough or attractive enough or qualified enough or worthy enough. Those beliefs are learned beliefs. Along the way, most of us began to collect evidence against ourselves, so we internalized the criticism, we internalized the comparison, the rejection, the disappointment, the fear. The goal of healing, in other words, isn't to become someone new. The goal is returning to that version of ourselves that existed before we learned to doubt our worth, right? So confidence isn't something that we acquire per se, it's something that we recover. And maybe that will make it less intimidating for somebody. It's already something that you have. If you're somebody listening and you struggle with confidence or feel that fear rules a part of your life, I really liked Ally's piece of advice that biochemical reaction in the brain, and it's very true, is the same when we are afraid and when we are excited. And if we can just make that the conscious effort to train our brain to be excited instead of fearful, then we will slowly start to recover something that was lost, not build something that was never there. Ally,
Yeah.
for our viewers listening, you've got a lot of wisdom to offer. If you wanted them to be able to take away one gold nugget of wisdom from today, what is it that you would want our listeners to walk away with?
It's what I tell everybody, and that is you are worthy. Your dreams are worthwhile. And if you really want something, you will find a way to get it. And if you're not finding a way, ask yourself, is it something you really want? Or is it something that your family, society, culture, whatever is telling you you want?
Hmm. Hmm. Yeah, that's a good 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 takeaway from both of you. But we want to hear from our audience what your key takeaway is. What is your journey with confidence? Let us know below. And make sure while you're writing that comment below that you subscribe to our YouTube channel. Subscribe to whatever platform you're listening to us on. Make sure you give us a 5-star on Apple and Spotify. Um, we are making some great strides with this. We're coming up on our year anniversary. We are going to celebrate it big. We're looking forward to it. We're looking for a whole new year of some wonderful stuff coming your way. So, I don't know if this episode will be before or after it, but it'll it'll be. So if this was after our anniversary, we just celebrated. If it's before, it's coming up. So,
We're to.
but make sure you're part of the community. Make sure you're subscribing. We it helps us out a lot. And that's going to bring us to our final segment called key takeaways.
Nope. That's sure
Not
not.
key takeaways. We just did key takeaways.
That's,
This is
that's okay.
we're
Go
going to
ahead.
try that again, and that's going to bring us to our final segment, the final five.
Final 5.
Who is your hero and why?
Yeah. So I thought about this question because I think heroes are really formed early on and that they change throughout life. And so early on, my heroes were Olga Korbut and Nadia Comaneci, who were both gymnasts because I really wanted to be an Olympic gymnast. And that was important to me. And later in life, as I got into my late teens and 20s, my heroes became fictional characters.
Mm.
Wonder Woman, Linda Carter's Wonder Woman, or Lindsay Wagner's Jamie, what was her name? Jamie Summers, the Bionic Woman. But recently, my absolute hands down hero is Christiane Amanpour, because she is just badass. You know, she was one of the first women to report for, well, not one of the first women. She was one of few women to report in combat zones. She was absolutely one of the first to hold leaders accountable for their atrocities and not simply report in a completely objective way, but recognize when atrocities were being committed. She goes toe to toe with world leaders and just doesn't back down. She's fearless. I mean, confidence in spades, right? So my hero now is Christiane Amanpour.
Very good. Love that. Next question for you is going to be, what do you think is more dangerous, fear or regret, and why?
Well, like I say in my book, fear and regret are twin thieves that would rob one of today's happiness. That's a Robert Hastings quote. And I don't think you can have one without the other, because fear leads to regret and regret leads to fear, fear of missing out. So I think they are two sides of the same coin. And if you can eliminate one, you can really help eliminate the other.
It's a good answer. I like that quote too. I don't know that I've heard that, not recently anyways, maybe at one point.
What is either one book, quote, song, scripture, verse, quote, that has had either a major impact on your life, been a life motto, has been your goalpost, you know?
Yeah, again, right? Processes, growing, aging, all the rest of it. I mean, when I was young, I remember listening to Helen Reddy's I Am Woman. You know that song, I Am Woman, Hear Me Roar, and Numbers Too Big to Ignore. Because my mom used to take us to a lot of women's marches, the National Organization of Women Now marches, as well as civil rights marches. She was friends with some civil rights leaders. She helped Jim Farmer write his autobiography. If you know who he is, he was the founder of the Congress of Racial Equality. My dad was big into service, and so I was very influenced by Florence Nightingale, a biography I read of hers when I think I was 11 or 12, and I got into, caring about people, and that was very influential. I started really thinking a lot about that, um, and then I think in terms of more recently, the quotes that have really inspired me since I've become an adult in the last few years, there are two, and one is Yoda, do or do not. There is no try. I tell my kids that all the time. It's like you do it or you don't. Um, and the other one is from Jackie Kennedy Onassis, and she said famously, "If you mess up your children, nothing else matters." And that has been a driving inspiration for me since I had kids.
You saying that reminded me, I saw a quote very similar to in that vein that I'm thinking may resonate with you. It said, "My only goal is to raise children that don't have to recover from their childhood." And that one really stuck. I know, it really stuck with me, especially
Really good.
being, with through what you've been through, and me too, and John. All of us have our own life experience and journey, and it could be something as severe as what I went through, losing a parent to suicide, or divorce is really hard on kids at those foundational ages. But it's so true. Like, the one goal is, regardless of the course of your life, right? Because we can't control always what happens in our life, but we can control how we respond to it. That in that we make sure to make a conscious effort every day that we are raising children that don't have to recover from their childhood. And that always
Yeah.
resonates with me in all of my parenting
Yeah.
decisions.
I like that. I like that
Sorry to
quote, because
digress. You
breaking the
said
cycle
that,
of
and it
trauma is
does.
huge.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. So the advice you gave, I really like practical pieces of advice. So my final question for you, John, will have one more, is going to be, um, what outside of making a conscious effort to convert that from fear to excitement, what's another practical piece of advice that you could give to somebody that, say, is struggling with confidence and has an event or an engagement or something coming up that they are nervous or fearful for?
Just one single thing.
You
With
could
just one
you could
thing?
give more if you'd like to. I wanted that gold nugget, but if you can say whatever you would like to.
Well, I mean, it'll be self-serving, but I'll be like, sign up for my newsletter because I talk about these things all the time in my newsletter, and I provide a lot of tips and tools and scientifically based research. But I also get a free sort of little how to maximize your personal potential. And one of the items in that, and this is the nugget, is do a 2-minute Wonder Woman Superman pose, because research has shown that if you stand for 2 minutes in that confidence pose, literally 2 minutes, which can seem like a long time when you're doing it, but 24-hour day, 2 minutes is nothing. And if you stand in that pose for 2 full minutes, research has shown that you actually increase your confidence by upwards of 40%. And so that would be my one nugget. Do the Wonder Woman pose. Take your time, settle, and like feel yourself standing straight and tall, and it will make a difference.
I love that. It's great.
And the final question for you is, if you could have a cup of coffee and a conversation with somebody living or dead, who would it be and why?
My mom, because you always think you'll have more time. And I kept wanting her, she told all these stories. My mom had an amazing ability to tell stories and an amazing number and scope of stories to tell. And it is one of my big regrets that I never hired a biographer for her. And I think that if I could have coffee with anyone, it would be with her.
Sweet.
I'd like to hear her stories again.
Sweet. I remember being a kid and having my mom always say, as we often do as parents, I'll tell you when you're older. And those stories that I will never get to hear because of the abrupt ending to her life. And so I very much resonate with that. Ally, thank you so much for being our guest today. You've had some beautiful answers and wonderful insight. For viewers that want to connect with you, subscribe to your newsletter, and just collect all of the gold nuggets of wisdom from you that they can, where can they go to find you? How can they connect with you?
Yeah, thanks so much. You can go to my website, allydalsimer.com. If you hit /newsletter, you can sign up. It's free. Alternates between what I call 5 minutes of fabulosity, where if you spend just 5 minutes doing the things that I suggest, it really does help with your confidence and other things. And the other week is author news, and I never sell or spam. And on social media, I'm most active on Instagram, and I would love for you to follow me there under Ally Dalsimer, and sign up and for the or check out the podcast rather, and subscribe if you like it, because it's a lot of fun, and there's some just really amazing. I mean, people are just doing some amazing and creative things, and it's so interesting to hear how different their processes are. You can talk to 2 different people in the same field, and they approach it in completely different ways. And it really is, I've learned so much. So it's fascinating. And
Thank
that's
you for
so
that.
what's
We'll
your
make sure-
process. And it's on Insta and on YouTube. Oh, and I have
and
a
we'll make
YouTube
sure to
channel
link
too.
all below. You have a
Yeah.
YouTube channel? We'll make
I
sure to
do.
link all
I
of it
do.
below.
I do book recs and other things. So
Awesome. Well, thank you. It's been an awesome conversation. It was a
yeah.
pleasure having you as our guest. And when we take the time to hear somebody's story, it gives us the opportunity to find common ground. Thank you, Ally, for being our
Yeah.
guest today. For Sydney and myself, it has been our pleasure being your host, and you have been listening to the Common Ground podcast. God bless and good night.
And that's it for today's episode of the Common Ground podcast. We hope you're leaving with a little more perspective, a little more purpose, and a whole lot more inspiration.
So thank you for joining us today. We appreciate it. Thank you to our special guest.
If today's conversation moved you, encouraged you, or challenged you in any way, don't keep it to yourself. Share it, rate it, leave us a review. Your support helps us reach more people who need to find their own common ground.
So for John Fletcher and Sydney Curtin,
we'll see you right here next week, same time, same place on the Common Ground podcast.
Please take a moment to listen to this disclosure from the Common Ground Podcast. The Common Ground Podcast is dedicated to exploring commonality among individuals with diverse perspectives. Our guests may present unique worldviews related to health, psychology, and overall well-being. Please note that the Common Ground Podcast does not directly promote or endorse any specific ideas, concepts, or actions discussed during our episodes. Listeners are encouraged to approach the information shared with discernment and to consult with their mental and/or physical health providers before making any changes to their health or wellness practices. The views expressed by guests and hosts are their own and do not directly reflect the opinions of the Common Ground Podcast. Your well-being is important, and we advocate for informed decision-making. Thanks for listening.